So far we have seen character text splitter demo and also recursive character text splitter demo, right? And the next one is, let me try to create a new Python file here. So we can see the third chunking method, which is nothing but Markdown Header Text Splitter demo. So this is our third chunking method, and like before, in case if you haven't already installed the packages, make sure you install LangChain and LangChain Text Splitter packages, and then we have to import our required modules here. So we don't need recursive character text splitter here because we are trying to do Markdown Header Text Splitter, right? So let's try to import Markdown Header Text Splitter from LangChain Text Splitters, right? And then again, I'm taking the same input document. This is our sample text that we are trying to chunk, right? And what we are trying to do with Markdown Header Text Splitter, this is ideal for Markdown documentation, right? And I've already shown you Markdown, right, in Jupyter Notebook. So if you notice here, this is the 1 hash is for heading 1 and 2 hashes for heading 2, 3 hashes for heading 3, right? So we have this Markdown feature available inside Jupyter Notebook. This Markdown Header Text Splitter is best for Markdown documentation, right? So what you can do before you even try to chunk by using Markdown Header Text Splitter, first thing is you try to convert your input document by using duckling or Markdown, and then try to convert this input document into Markdown, and then you try to apply Markdown Header Text Splitter, right? So that way you will get more accurate results, right? I've already explained in the previous lecture, but let me quickly show you what is duckling. So if you see here, so this is our Git repo, right? So you can pass your PDF document and you can try to convert into Markdown. And we also have Mark It Down. So this is the Mark It Down Git repo, right? So Mark It Down is a Python tool for converting files and Office documents to Markdown, right? So it will convert our input document into Markdown so that LLM will be able to understand these Markdowns easily, right? And we already saw this one too, LangChain duckling, right? So LangChain duckling parses PDF, docx, pptx, HTML and other formats into a rich unified representation including document layout, tables, etc., making them ready for generative AI workflows like RAG, right? So we have duckling support from LangChain too. So it's clearly documented here. In case if you want to deep dive, you can go through this documentation. We have different examples here, right? So before we use this Markdown Header Text Splitter and try to chunk our input document, before you do that, first thing is try to apply duckling on this input document. So that way LLM will be able to easily understand. But here I've already added this markdowns, that is 1 hash, 2 hash, 3 hashes, etc. But in case if your document doesn't have anything, you try to first pass this one to the duckling and then get this Markdown ready. Now let's see how to use Markdown Text Splitter, right? So here we are telling it to divide whenever, these are kind of separators, right? So we are telling it whenever there are 1 hash or 2 hash or 3 hash, right? Then split there. So if you notice here, these separators are more reliable, right, than defining the chunk size. So if you notice here, we are telling chunk by every 150 characters, right? So these are user defined parameters. Whereas here, we are not defining any parameters here. Instead, we are telling chunk whenever you see these markdowns, right? So this is more reliable than either character text splitter or recursive character text splitter, right? And if you want to deep dive into this Markdown, I've already explained Markdown features in detail by using Jupyter Notebook, right? So please go through that lecture if you haven't already. So first we defined our pattern here, that is split by markdowns, right? And then now let's try to use this Markdown Text Splitter and try to create chunks, right? So we are using Markdown Text Splitter, and inside this we have a parameter called headers to split on, and we are passing this one. So we are telling it to chunk by these values, right? So whenever there is 1 hash or 2 hash or 3 hashes, these are markdowns, right? Inside this we know we have split underscore text method, right? So that we will get the chunks. And let me try to print and see what we have inside this docs, right? So let's run it. And now you can see this is the overall, but let me try to print each individual chunk so that way it will be easy for you to understand. So let's loop in, and what we are doing here, we can get metadata of the header and the chunk belongs to which page, right? So we have methods from LangChain, so that is why we are using LangChain, right? Now let me save it and run. So now you can see document 1, and the header is, there is no header. Content, what is the content here? This is the content. So if you see here, it tried to print till end of this, right? So whenever there is one hash, so that is the markdown, right? So it chunk till end of this one, and the second chunk is this part, right? And here there is no content, right? So that's why that it didn't print anything here. And the third one is, here we have this markdown, right? So it tried to chunk here, and the fourth one again is, here we have 2 hashes, right? So that's why I tried to chunk over here, right? So now you understood. So what we did here, first thing is we try to install the required packages and try to import the required module, that is Markdown Header Text Splitter, from LangChain Text Splitters package, right? And then we prepared our input document here, and it already contained markdowns, right? But in case if your input document doesn't contain markdown, you can make use of duckling and then try to create these markdowns, right? And once you get the markdowns, then you can use Markdown Header Text Splitter, right? And this is the pattern we are telling. So whenever you see these markdowns, then try to chunk there, right? So this is best used for markdown documentation, right? Thank you.